The Detroit Lions need a pass rush. Over the last 10 quarters of football, dating back to the second quarter, the first half against the Minnesota Vikings, the Detroit Lions have recorded just a single sack among their defensive linemen. If you back up to the moment that Aiden Hutchinson broke his leg and lost his 2024 season, the Detroit Lions, through 14 and a half quarters of football, have seen just two sacks from their defensive line. That is not good. That is not acceptable for a Super Bowl caliber team, and it is not acceptable for a team that has aspirations as large as Detroit's. Now, when I say it's unacceptable, that does not mean that I blame Brad Holmes. That does not mean that I blame the coordinator or anything like that. In fact, I think they've rallied really well around the players that they've had. And I think overall, the defense has still been playing well above the expectations and well above where they should be for a team with almost zero pass rush to show for it. But when I say it's unacceptable, it's because I think that a trade for a player would make a big difference. I think a trade at the trade deadline could make this Detroit Lions defense go from above average to a truly elite unit, setting them up for Super Bowl success this season as well as a repeat next season. So today, we're going to take a look at a scenario where the Detroit Lions trade for not one, but two edge rushers on the defensive line and potentially put together and add to what has already been a top defense in the NFL. Now, yesterday we talked pretty extensively about Zidus Smith, potentially costing them a fourth-round selection to bring in a veteran pass rusher. And while this trade has not yet been confirmed at the time of recording around noon on Monday, as the Detroit Lions took the field on Sunday afternoon versus the Green Bay Packers, it was rumored pretty heavily that they were going to trade for Smith, right? It was almost said that they have a deal done, right? It's expected that at some point on Monday, Zidus Smith will be on a plane on his way to Detroit. And if you want to see the breakdown of that video, that trade, and what Zidus Smith brings to the Lions, go check out that video from yesterday to hear everything about that trade. So in this scenario, we're going to say that the Detroit Lions make that trade, right? Monday, the 4th, they make a trade. Zidus Smith is on a plane getting to Detroit that night. But let's say that Brad Holmes wakes up on the 5th. He says, hey, I like Zidus Smith, but I'm not done. I don't feel like we have quite enough depth and quite enough juice on the defensive line to get it done this year. Let's call Tennessee and see if they're willing to trade Arden Key, the 7-year NFL veteran from the Tennessee Titans, for a 5th-round pick. Now, Arden Key is a 6'5", 250-pound edge rusher. He's a good run stopper. He's a good pass rusher. And the cherry on top is he is just 28 years old. Not to mention, when he was a free agent in 2023, the Detroit Lions brought him in for a meeting. They scheduled a meeting with Arden Key to bring in to interview and potentially add to the roster. And of course, Arden Key decided that his best option would be to go to Tennessee as a pass rusher as opposed to Detroit. But it shows that the Detroit Lions did have interest in adding Key even just 2 off seasons ago. And there are a couple of really good reasons as to why the Lions could want to add Arden Key and to why he may very well want to join the Detroit Lions, but we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. Taking a look at Key's 7-year NFL career, he's recorded 147 tackles, 24 sacks, 29 tackles for loss, and 77 quarterback hits. Through 2024, Arden Key has played in 8 games for the Tennessee Titans with 19 tackles, 4 sacks, 7 TFLs, 2 forced fumbles, and a pass defended at the line of scrimmage. His best game coming against the Detroit Lions, where he recorded 2 sacks and a forced fumble, and over the last 4 games has recorded 4 sacks overall. He is heating up in the NFL season. He is getting hot right now, and this is the perfect time to trade for the veteran pass rusher. Now, as mentioned before, Arden Key was a free agent in 2023. After spending time with the Raiders, the 49ers, and the Jaguars, Arden Key was a free agent. He was a player that a lot of people felt like the Lions potentially should have added in the free agency class, and a player that they actually did bring in for a meeting. He was brought to Detroit. He met with Brad Holmes. He met with Aaron Glenn, but decided to go to Tennessee to work with Terrell Williams, the defensive line coach at the time. That defensive line coach is now in Detroit, a coach that he has worked with before and a coach that has worked with Arden Key. That two-way relationship could be the bridge that brings Arden Key to Detroit and potentially is a reason why he may want to come. Now, in this scenario, in this predictive future, the Detroit Lions would potentially give up a 5th-round pick for Arden Key. Some people will say that's not enough. I say for a 28 going on 29-year-old edge rusher who in his career has just 24 sacks, I think a 5th-round selection is more than fair for a 2-7 football team whose aspirations for the playoffs are essentially over. Arden Key is a piece and is a veteran player that the Titans can get value out of, and it's not hard to picture it, right? Because even as early as this offseason, the Tennessee Titans traded for linebacker Ernest Jones, and just 6 weeks later, traded him to Seattle. They are not opposed to releasing some of their more recently acquired talent, and I think that that could potentially be Arden Key, right? If the Lions can get him for a 5th-round pick or even a 5th and a 6th-round selection, I think they would be smart to do so and potentially get a pick swap in there as well for either of these trades, right? Brad Holmes is somebody who really likes to get every last ounce of trade value out of every single deal. We saw with Carlton Davis where he squeezed an extra 2 6th-round selections from that deal, trading away a 3rd. We've seen it at other times throughout his time in Detroit making trades. He likes those late-round picks. He likes to have as many picks as he had entering a trade as he did when leaving a trade. So I think if he does trade for Arden Key, could potentially ask for a 7th-round pick as well. If he trades a 4th for Zidus Smith, could potentially come with a 5th, 6th, or 7th-round pick along with it. But that is yet to be seen. Taking a look at Arden Key, his contract really isn't too bad. He is contracted through 2025, where in 2024, the Lions would pay him $2.3 million from the cap, and in 2025 would pay him $9.3 from the cap. If the Detroit Lions feel like they do not want to pay that, they could release him for $7 million in cap savings, and a very similar thing goes for Zidus Smith. His contract is also through 2025, where this season, if he traded the Lions just $700,000 against the cap, whereas in 2025 would cost them $7 million against the cap, but with zero guaranteed, you could release Zidus Smith with $7 million in savings, meaning if you traded for both of them this season, you could essentially cut one in order to have the other for free the next season in 2025. These two trades would set the Detroit Lions pass rush up for a 2025 season in which their defensive line consists of Aiden Hutchinson, Arden Key, Zidus Smith, Aleem McNeil, DJ Reader, Mekhi Wingo, and Levi Onwuzurike as your starting players on the defensive line. That does not include a rotation of Broderick Martin, a rotation of John Kaminsky, a rotation of Josh Paschal, or any of the other players like Kyle Pico that could potentially remain on this roster as well. This would set the Detroit Lions up to potentially have one of, if not the deepest defensive line rooms in the entirety of the NFL. And as I said, you very well may want to release one of Key or Smith in 2025. If you release one, you essentially get the other one for free. And as far as cap space goes, right, you free up about $7 million from Zidus Smith, pay $9 million for Arden Key. It essentially makes up the difference right there. But you could potentially keep both, right? Paying about $16 million across both of them for a 2nd and 3rd consistent pass rusher alongside Aiden Hutchinson. And then when Aiden Hutchinson gets his massive contract extension, when he gets his $30 million a year, probably in the 2024 offseason, it will take effect in 2026, right? Because after his 4th year under his rookie contract and then his 5th year option, his big contract will take effect in 2026, the exact time frame in which Arden Key and Zidus Smith will free $16 million off the books for that extension to take place and happen. I think that both of these trades make sense. I think both of these trades in unison make sense for the Detroit Lions. And even though the Lions would be giving up 2 picks on day 3 of their NFL draft, they would still have 5 picks within the draft, including their 1st round selection, their 2nd round selection, and 3 picks on day 3. Now, with that being said, Brad Holmes could always move picks around, right? He could trade out of the 1st and potentially acquire another 2nd and 3rd round pick. There's a lot of things that they could do with those 5 draft picks. And again, that is a story for another video well down the line when we get to the draft. But this defensive line, I think, would set the Detroit Lions up for a Super Bowl. A defensive line this year that consists of Levi Onwuzurike, Aleem McNeil, DJ Reader on the interior, with Josh Paschal, Arden Key, and Zidus Smith on the edge. I think would give the Detroit Lions enough pass rush to put them over the edge. You add Aiden Hutchinson and potentially Marcus Davenport to that edge rushing group, that gives you 4 to 5 legit starting caliber edge rushers, as well as 3 to 4 interior starting caliber players, all on the same defensive line, all going after the passer, and really giving the Detroit Lions a truly elite defensive front for the first time in a very long time. With that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about this potential trade scenario. If the Detroit Lions trade for Za'Darius Smith, are you happy to throw in the towel and say that is enough? Or do you think the Detroit Lions should go all in and trade for a second player in Arden Key? I'd be very curious to your guys' opinions on whether you want both trades, one over the other in particular, or if you're on the rare side of the Detroit Lions being okay to do neither at the NFL trade deadline. I'd be curious to hear your guys' opinions in the comments down below. But with that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions.